school construction report, Mr. Ramon.
Good evening. The new elementary, approximately 95% of the structure block has already been completed. Approximately 50% of the exterior block has been laid. A steel structure is being erected in the science lab and the PE area. Electrical, plumbing, HVAC is continuing. That is a continuing work. Approximately 40% of the project has been completed as of today. Unfortunately, I don't have any good news in reference to the turning lane. No one is responding on the agreement that we had about 2-3 months ago, verbal agreement that we have. I had numerous calls to the county for the last 2 weeks and not received any return calls. And so we're still working with that and see what we can do there. I'm concerned that we're going to open the school and not have a turning lane, and then we'll have other issues there. We'll make a recommendation to you once we visit with them, whether or not they're going to assist us.
Who have you called in county, Mr. Ramon?
Correct.
Who? Who have you talked to, or who have you directed your call to?
David, I have been talking to David Garcia out of Mr. Pete Sepulveda's office.
And they haven't returned your calls?
Mr. Pete Sepulveda is the administrator for the county. He was in some of our meetings, and he said David would be answering those calls. And I had told Mr. Limon I basically had done everything that I can. I think it's time for elected officials to talk to elected officials of the various entities and see.
Well, in the next few weeks, they're going to have a little changeover there also, so we can guarantee we're going to get this thing done. Okay.
Well, I waited several weeks when they couldn't decide who was going to be the county judge, and so I told Mr. Garcia, I'll wait until you guys settle that, and then we'll get together on it. But I did want you to be made aware that we're not going anywhere there yet, and I'm afraid that it probably will take 4 to 5 months continuously to get that thing done. We are scheduled to finish the school at the end of June. We're hoping that will do that. This will be, if that happens, that will be the first one that we will have furniture and ready to go within a month so that we can be ready for that. And as far as the summer projects, the Ed Downs and La Paloma, there's an item for your consideration today. Those projects are substantially completed. The building committee has already visited those projects. Frank Roberts and Landrum, which is what you approved, I believe, about a month ago. The architect is working and completing the schematic design and the design development for that to try to get everything ready. What we're looking at as far as schedules, we're looking at going to the street with proposals or requesting proposals in February, having them due sometimes in March to come to you as a building and finance and board in the month of April. Met with the city today. We wanted to make sure that we sit down with the planning department and make sure that we knew what is it that they were going to be requiring. So there are going to be, we're supposed to send some information to them. They're supposed to get back to us. There's no problem at Landrum because it's a small area that we're adding. But when we're talking about demolishing the cafeteria and 3 classrooms at Frank Roberts, they're saying that they're consider that as a completely new construction and the new rules apply. And so they will go ahead and talk to us once we give them the information they requested today. Those are all the projects that we have going right now.
Mr. Ramon, I have a concern with the water problem at the high school. Apparently, the water main keeps breaking over there, and kids are without bathroom facilities, and it's happened several times. I mean, what seems to be the problem with the water supply at the high school?
Mr. David Garcia? That's Mr. Garcia's area.
Acts of God for the ground.
No, acts of God one time, maybe twice, but I understand it's happened several times.
The ground, it's very dry. The ground starts cracking, and it seems when the lines were put in, they did not use sand. what we do nowadays. So it's all those lines are in clay, and the clay cracks and it shifts, and that's what allows the pipes to break.
Okay, now I noticed a lot of the money that we had left over because we saved money at VMA putting two wings together, and you had extra money left over, and I understand some of that's being used for the roof at the high school and other projects. Is there money left over, or can that money be used to alleviate the problem of the water at the high school? Because, I mean, if you're talking our biggest campus without water, without bathroom facilities, I mean, I think something needs to be done.
IFA money is questionable for that, but I can double check and inform Mr. Limon.
Now, if we're gonna continue to have that type of problem at the high school, is there a contingency plan? I mean, I hate to think of all those kids having, you know, to go to the bathroom throughout the day with no water.
We every time that happens, Mr. La Fuente, we have a trailer with a tank, and we fill it with water with a 2-inch line at the UTEX building that fills up in 10 minutes. And we have several buckets that go over there, and all the custodians are aware. Janet turns around and gets all the drinking water for the kids. And of course, I know the buckets is a problem, but we do get the toilets flushed. And usually when one of the lines breaks, it's not really the whole high school. Like transportation will have water, the sports complex has water because it comes in from a different direction, or vice versa.
How many water breaks have we had there this past year?
2. We just had one recently, and that was a 2-inch line that came into the B wing, that when they made the chiller plant, the new chiller plant, they branched off or teed off on one of our main lines, and it just, an elbow just broke. And we fixed that within an hour and a half.
Well, I understand it took longer than an hour and a half. I mean,
Sir?
I understand it took pretty much all day because I got complaints.
Ms.
about that
Weaver,
issue.
can you expound on that? How long did it take, Ms. Weaver?
The first water
Yeah, the main one
line,
close to the sign.
it took at least 3.5 hours. Second time, we planned it where it would be toward the end of the day after 2 o'clock. So, but it came back, what, about an hour and a half later,
Okay, well,
even before school was out.
I mean, it seems to be a recurring problem, and I'm wondering if we can fix that. And if there's extra monies available for that, I'd like that issue to be looked at, because I find it
Oscar, I think we need to
disturbing.
fix it no matter what. I mean, even if we have to take it in the fund balance, we need to get that thing
Yeah,
fixed.
Well,
But I don't think we have a way of knowing that it's
Well,
gonna.
the only thing I can think of is digging up the lines and checking them out and putting sand on the lines, which would be, you know, the school is never shut down long enough for us to do something like that.
Right.
Because that school is always going, always something, you know. For us to dig up the lines, you know, carefully, and then put sand, you know, soft river sand in it, and then.
well, how much would something like that cost? I mean,
It wouldn't cost a lot of money, it just takes time.
well, I think maybe this summer we really need to look at doing that, because I get complaints about that, and then there's also an issue with the water at some of the science labs. I understand some of the water there is so dark and brackish that they can't even use it for their experiments there at the science lab, and I
This is
had
after a water line break.
okay.
You know how it comes out a little bit dirty.
No, this is a recurring problem that I think we need to look at as well, because if we're having problems supplying clean water to that high school, I think that's a high priority issue. And I hope it gets addressed. Thank you.
We'll address it, Mr. LaFleur.
Any other questions, board members?
That was a real good one.
I want to take the time to wish you and your loved ones a Merry Christmas and a proper New Year. And I'm glad we had the discussion because I have a message. Do not be afraid. I bring you good news that will cause great joy for all people. Today, in the town of David, your Savior was born, and he can be your Messiah and your Lord if you allow him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ramon. Actually, I wanted you to sing también.
I thought you were gonna sing
I
for
think
us,
you
sir.
sing for us too, sir.
Not this year. Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item number 8, action agenda. In order to promote efficient meetings, the board may act upon more than one item by a single vote through the use of consent agenda. Consent items placed on the agenda shall be marked with an asterisk. Consent items are items for which no board discussion is anticipated and for which the superintendent recommends approval. Prior to the time which approval of consent agenda is had, at the request of any member of the Board of Trustees, any item on the consent agenda shall be removed and given individual consideration. Under Business and Finance, item 1012A-1, request for approval of the substantial completion of the specific classroom renovations for Ed Downs and La Paloma Elementary Schools. Consent. Item 1012A-2, request for approval, a proposal on roof replacement for the high school. Consent. Item 1012A-3, request for approval of proposals on windstorm, hurricane, and insurance.
Question.
Question by Mr. De La Fuente. Item 1012A-4, request for approval to purchase server hardware for district-wide student information system, SIS, finance system, and human resources. Consent. Item 1012A-5, request for approval of budget transfers. Consent. Item 1012A-6, request for approval of 2010-2011 budget amendments. Consent. Under Curriculum and Instruction, item 1012A-7, request for approval of district textbook committee members related to Proclamation 2011. Consent. Item 1012A-8, request for approval to change district-wide student information system, SIS, provider to RSCCC TCEIS. Consent. Item 1012A-9, request for approval to accept the Algebra Readiness Cycle 2 Grant Award, Consent. Under Administration, under item 1012A-10, request for approval of board minutes. Consent. Item 1012A-11, request for approval of 2011 annual membership dues to the Texas Association of School Boards, TASB. Consent. Item 1012A-12, request for approval of Board Policy Update 88. Consent. Item 1012A-13, request for approval to add Policy CFB Local. Consent. Item 1012A-14, request for approval of a resolution to make education a priority. Consent. Item 1012A-15, request for approval of representative to the Cameron County Appraisal Board of Directors. Consent. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to approve item 1012A-1, 1012A-2, 1012A-4, 1012A-5, 1012A-6, 1012A-7, 1012A-8, 1012A-9, 1012A-10, 1012A-11, 1012A-12, 1012A-13.
Mr. President, can I question 13?
Sure.
You could remove that item, because I do have a question about that.
There will,
I apologize.
yes, sir. There will be a question on item 13, and we'll come back to it. We'll continue with the motion 1012A-14 and 1012A-15. Moved by Mr. Tomlinson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mr. De La Fuente. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Ayes have it, motion carries.